All right. So hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today's masterclass. So I'm glad you could join me today, especially as I postponed it last week at the last moment because I lost my voice. So happily my voice is back now, and I'm really excited to have you here today to talk about streamlining your writing process. So we're going to talk about how to channel your creative ideas into actual finished written articles. So this is geared mostly towards written articles, but probably it's transferable to other creative pieces as well. Yeah, this will be focused around writing. I'm going to start by telling you a bit more about my background and my experience and also my struggles with writing. And we're going to talk about 5 common mistakes that we make in our writing process, and that there are actually a lot more stages to when we channel our creative ideas into written articles than just sitting down and writing part. And we're going to talk about those stages as well. That there are 3 basic ingredients to any article. And if you have these, it's much easier to get to your finished piece. And as an example, I'm going to share with you my personal process of how I write my masterclasses, like how I wrote this masterclass, for example. And in the end, I added a little advanced section because I know that a lot of people who will be watching this masterclass are quite seasoned writers and may have questions around improving your speed, writing consistency, and dealing with writer's block. So we're also going to talk about those things. I've always loved to write. Yeah, I used to write short stories as a child. They were always set in this magical and fantasy world. I wrote those quite often. There were different topics, things about, mermaids and magicians and magic. It was a wonderful way for me to kind of connect with my imagination. And I was also a very dedicated journaler. I had stacks and stacks of notebooks filled with my everyday experiences, my struggles, and my revelations also. And then later on, I went into science. I became a scientist. During my studies and my scientific career, I learned to write scientific manuscripts, and I published several of them. And it's a completely different style of writing, right? Much more structured. But I quickly realized that from all the activities that I was doing as a scientist, I loved writing the most. And I also loved scientific writing because I was fascinated with taking the complex ideas that we deal with in science and to translate that in a way that everyone can understand. So I decided to change careers and to really become a writer. And I did a lot of courses about writing, journalism, editing. I got my graphic design qualification, and I got a medical writer's qualification from EMWA, the European Medical Writers Association. And I also had different jobs related to writing. So I won't go through my entire CV, but here are some of the highlights. So as a freelance writer, I would travel to conferences and board meetings, and I would write those up. And my audiences, it was quite varied, but all scientific related. So I wrote for medical doctors, scientists, patients, but also for general audiences. Later, I worked as an editor, where I saw the other side of things. And I was responsible for coordinating a peer-reviewed medical magazine, basically, so to speak. And I managed a team of 3 editors. I was the main editor. And we were responsible for coordinating between external writers, freelancers who wrote the bulk of the text, a scientific board that would read through the text and ensure the quality of the magazine. That's what we call peer review. And I also then coordinated with the designer who did the graphics, so the images that would go into the magazine, and also the layout of the overall magazine. And I was at that company for maybe a year, and I think we published more than 20 magazines on different topics in that time. And in my last role, I was a communications and marketing advisor for a startup and we were creating a series of professional development courses. We were a small team, so we were basically involved in every stage of the course development. So I did anything from assisting with actual creation of the course content, like writing scripts for animation or developing assignments, to making graphics and flyers and other marketing materials. I set up the newsletter, I organized in-person events. So we did a lot of different things, and I learned all about that area, but also a little bit of business development. We did 8 runs of the first course that we developed, and we developed about 2 more courses. And we did manage to get a first course accredited during my time there. And when I left that role, I left to start my coaching business. And in this business, I feel like I'm able to bring together all the things that I've learned, but also my love for writing. So yeah, it was a massive learning experience, all of these roles. And but at the same time, when you sum it up like this, you know, it's a really great career. Everything seems to be smooth sailing, loads of writing experience, some business development in there. And that's always the thing with highlights, right? And often that's all we see, the highlights. But because at the same time, during that same period, especially throughout my medical writing career on a personal level, I felt completely stuck with my writing. You see, I always wanted to write about other things besides the medical and scientific topics that I wrote for in my professional career. And I really missed the type of writing that I did as a child, that was more free and more open on different types of topics. And I really wanted to start a blog. That's actually how the name, The Franker Message, started. I bought the domain name, and originally it was going to be a portfolio blog. And Franker, which is my last name, it means free and open-hearted. So it's going to be my open-hearted message to the world, which in a way beautifully connects to the work that I do now as a natural productivity coach. So I decided to keep the name.